Hey there, hey, this is Anne Marie, the anti-HR lady, and on this channel I talk about HR issues, I provide HR tips, and I talk to employees about their workplace rights, understanding their workplace rights, and asserting their workplace rights if they feel they've been violated. So if you think this is of interest to you, please hit that like button, subscribe, and share it with a friend. Now, today I want to talk a little bit about things that employees should think about before they record a conversation in the workplace. So I have a lot of clients and potential clients primarily come to me via discovery calls, and they proudly tell me about how, I've got recordings of this and I've got recordings of that, and I recorded this and I recorded that. And when they tell me about, I recorded this conversation with my boss, or I recorded this conversation with the person in HR, I always stop them and I ask them, did you have permission to make the recording? Or do you know what your company's policies are about recordings? And the reason I ask that is because, when you decide to confront, issues of discrimination and other wrongdoing in your workplace, one of the things that HR often does is spends time trying to figure out if there are ways that they can get rid of you without even have to address the issue that you raise with them. And so if they determine that you have violated a company policy by recording a conversation with your boss, recording a conversation with HR, they could use that to fire you, and then they don't have to deal with the issue that you're raising around discrimination. So it's very important for you to know what your company's confidentiality policies say and whether your company has any policies about recording in the workplace, right? A lot of employers do not have them, but some employers do. How do I know? Because I've written these policies. I once worked at a company where we found out that there was a person who was recording conversations without the consent of the individuals, and that he was doing it without people knowing, and then he would use it later to try to bully people. And we decided to write a policy barring individuals from being able to do this, right? And one of the things that I learned while I was researching it was, even though a state may be a one-party state, that a company can still pass a policy that says you can't do it. And if they do, they can still fire you despite the state law saying that it's a one-party state. So don't think that just because your state is a one-party state, and when I say a one-party state, I mean your state may have a law that says that as long as one party consents to a recording, you can do it. And that means you, as the person doing the recording, can be the consenter, and you don't have to ask the other person permission. In a two-party state, generally, you have to get the permission of both parties being recorded, right? And so it's important to first of all know, before you hit that record button on your phone, are you in a two-party state or are you in a one-party state? But even if it turns out that you're in a one-party state, does your company have a policy that says you can't do that? And so it's important to make sure you read your handbook and know what's in there before you hit that record button, especially if you intend to pull that out of your pocket and wave it around and say, I have a recording later, right? I've also often advised people about how to use what they've recorded without having to disclose what they recorded, right? And there are ways to do that as well, but that's not what this video is about. This video is about whether or not you should be doing it in the first place. And so what I would say is, by all means, record if you are clear that you're not violating a company policy or any law in your state, right? About whether or not you're allowed to record another person without their consent, right? And so if the answer is that your company has no policy and you live in a one-party jurisdiction, then you can go forth and record. But I would still say to be careful about how you disclose it, because you may also be working for an at-will, more than likely, environment. And so you want to be careful about how and when you disclose you have the recordings, right? But it's okay for you to make the recordings. And that's a distinction to also remember. Having something and knowing how and when to use it are not the same thing. And just because you can do something doesn't necessarily mean you should do it. So you want to always think about the context in which you are doing it and how you intend to use the information, right? But if you are in a two-party state, I would highly recommend that you do not record without asking permission. And you can say in a meeting, I would like to record this for me to reference again. Is it okay if I record? If they say yes, knock yourself out. More than likely, any HR person has any sense going to say no. But there are instances in which people have been told they could record, right? And sometimes you're on a Teams meeting or something like that, and it's being recorded, and you can just retain a copy of that, and you didn't even make the recording, right? But if you are personally got a phone in your purse and somebody comes in the room and you intend to hit the record button, you need to make sure you know whether or not it is okay for you to do that from a legal standpoint as well as from a company policy standpoint. And don't think that because it's legal in your state that you can't be fired for doing it. Be sure you know what the company policy is as well. I have written a blog post that goes into even more detail about this. It is linked in the description of this video. So I would recommend that you also read that if you have other questions. I hope it is helpful. I hope this tip is helpful. As always, if you enjoyed this video, please subscribe. Please hit the like button. Please share it with a friend. And always remember that HR is not your enemy, but they're definitely not your friend. I am. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.